The Emigrants by Letitia Landon. They dwelt amid the woods where they had built themselves a home. It was almost a hut, and rudely framed of logs and piled up wood, but it was covered with sweet creeping shrubs, and had a porch of evergreens. It stood beneath the shelter of a maple tree whose boughs spread over it, like a green tent. 'Twas beautiful, in summer, with gay flowers, green leaves, and fragrant grass strewn on the floor. And, in the winter, cheerful at its hearth, where blazed the wood fire and its tapestry of soft rich furs, each a memorial of some escape, some toil, some hunter's chance, and mixed with scarlet berries and red plums, and glossy wings. There was one only thing that spoke them strangers in the land and told the luxuries of other days. There hung a Spanish maiden's ivory guitar with its rich fretting of gold ornament, and that was often waked, as memory lived chiefly on its dear chords. And she would sing, the dark-eyed lady, sometimes when alone, and when her songs were sad. But when the eve came in the beauty of June twilight, with all its sleeping flowers, its dews, its clouds, touched with sunset's crimson lingering, or when it came with its gay lighted hearth, sweet with the burning of a cedar wood, her voice was cheerful as the sunny song the lark pours to the morning and dismay. For then her hunter sought his lonely bride, and, like a victor, brought his trophies home. It was a little nook, as nature made in some gay mood, a solitude for love, and, at her bidding, love had sought the place and made it paradise. On the west side, like a dark mountain, stood the forest old, guarding it from the wind, which howled at night as if the wood were its chief treasure cave. And, opposite, there was a clear small lake, from whence the morning like a beauty came fresh from her bath. The eye could span its breadth, and green savannas on the further bank were lost in the blue sky. Just where the trees met the bright waters was a lighter space, and like the pillars of a mighty temple, the pine, the bech, the maple stretched away in long and stately avenues, where down the glorious heaven. This was all nature's work, and now was but as it had been for years. But there were fragile flowers and tender shrubs, whose feminine frail beauty asked for more than the rude nursing of a summer breeze. There was the red rose, like an evening cloud, the white rose, pale as pining for the song of her now absent love, the nightingale, the orange tree, with measure of a spring, amassing gold and silver, jessamine showering down pearl and amber, myrtle plants, and, where the sun shone warmest, olives green. For Ines had collected all that. Once her early youth had laughed in Aragon, and, with all woman's sweet solicitude, she had brought vows, too, of his native land, her love's England, there the violet shed the treasures of its purple Araby. The primrose, pale as the last star that fades before the daybreak, and the honeysuckle hung as around an English cottage wall. No marvel woman should love flowers, they bear so much of fanciful similitude to her own history, like herself, repaying with such sweet interest all the cherishing that calls the beauty of her sweetness forth, and, like her too, dying beneath neglect. 'Twas like a fairy tale to pass the woods and enter the sweet solitude, and gaze on the fair spirit of its loveliness, delicate as a creature that but breathes the perfumed air of palaces, a foot light as but used to tread on silken down and echo music, and a hand that looked but made to wander o'er the golden harp. Eyes blue as a June sky, when stars light up its deep clear midnight, languishing as love were all their language, eyes whose glance would make at mask or ball full many a sleepless night. With dark black hair, which pearls so well become, and, added to young beauty's natural grace, that courtly air which tells of gentle blood and gentle nurture. What can she do here? She loves, she is beloved, and love is all that makes a woman's world, her element, her life, her Eden. Native of that land where the sun lights the heart, romantic Spain her early youth passed in a convent cell, thence to her father's place, but, or ere her heart beat answered to the passionate songs that round her letters floated, at twilight they came to England, where the seal was set, love never sets in vain, and sets but once. It was an English youth, with his fair brow and island colour, One eve, when the sound of music waked the spirit of delight from Mina's braided hair, there fell a rose. That night that rose was treasured next the heart of which, henceforth, she was the destiny. It needs not say how young affection sprung, gathered and grew in its sweet course. They hung together on the poet's breathing page, till their own eyes reflected every thought. And both loved music, and love never yet had an interpreter like song. But as the rose, even in the crimson zenith of its noon, flings on the ground its shadow, even so there's a shade attendant upon love. And Ines was betrothed in her own land to one she could not love, on whose dark brow stewed its darker spirit. One June eve together they had read a traveller's tale of far America's majestic beauty, of its savannas and its stately woods. They read till the pale radiance of the west lighted the page no more, and sighed the youth, "How happy we might be in these wild scenes, Hunter and I, and thou my gentle bride." Far from the heartlessness of crowded court, their finest feelings are but as flowers sown upon a rock, where hope sings as it soars, like a lark wounded in its morning flight. Our home should be amid the wilderness. The leaves, flowers, clouds, echoes, and singing birds to us should be companions and dear friends, and we would pair together, like two doves, our nest of happiness and solitude. The dream grew a reality. We fled o'er the Atlantic's mighty boundary, that stormy barrier of a parted earth, and in the woods they made themselves a home, each one the other's world, and with them dwelt a circle of sweet feelings, peace, content, and gentle hopes reposing on themselves, quiet but deep affection, and the health that dwells but in the pure air of the fields. What though no train waited to catch the eye, or the lip spoke its bidding, though no halls were filled with crowds that waited on their state, yet had they more than all that fortune gives, for there was nature's utmost luxury, and theirs the happiness of heart and home lighted by love.